The night air was thick with the scent of rain, and the streets of Tokyo glistened like obsidian under the flickering streetlights. Hiro Tanaka barely noticed. His fingers worked skillfully, binding the last set of herbs for a customer at his tiny ramen shop. His back ached, his eyes stung from the smoke of simmering broth, and all he wanted was to close up and head home. But something felt off, an itch in the air, like unseen eyes pressing down on him. He shook his head and chuckled bitterly. Paranoia, he told himself. Years of living a double life did that to a man. By day, Hiro was the quiet, unassuming ramen shop owner known for his spicy miso broth. By night, he was something else entirely, the Shadow. A name whispered in fear by criminals who met him only long enough to regret it. Hiro stepped outside, locking his shop's door. The streets were unusually quiet. No cars rumbled past, no drunken laughter spilled from the bars. Even the neon signs seemed dimmer. Something was wrong. Then, in the corner of his vision, he saw them, 3 figures standing perfectly still in the alley across the street. Tall, armored in sleek metallic suits that shimmered like liquid steel, they didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stared. Tourists? Hiro muttered under his breath. But deep down, he knew better. The tallest of the 3 turned his head, a thin slit where a mouth should be curling into something that resembled a grin. Then, without a sound, they stepped forward, too smooth, too fast. Hiro's muscles tensed, instincts flaring. He reached into his jacket, fingers brushing the kunai knife hidden inside. The figures moved like liquid shadows, gliding across the pavement without footsteps. Hiro turned and bolted down the alley. Behind him, the assassins gave chase, their speed unnatural. Hiro twisted through a maze of alleyways, his mind racing. They weren't human, no doubt about that. Their footsteps didn't echo, their movements blurred as if they skipped frames in reality itself. He pivoted hard, vaulting a chain-link fence and rolling into a narrow passage between buildings. 1 breath. 2. The assassins appeared at the far end, fast, too fast. Fine, Hiro muttered, unsheathing his kunai. You want me? Come get me. The first assassin lunged, a blade of pure white energy flicking out from its wrist. Hiro twisted, his kunai slicing across the creature's arm. Sparks flew. No blood. The thing didn't even flinch. The second one closed in from behind. Hiro ducked low, sweeping the assassin's legs. It staggered, just enough for Hiro to flip backward and vanish into the shadows. The darkness was his ally. Years of training in the art of stealth had turned Hiro into a master of invisibility. He blended into the gloom, breath steady, muscles tight. The assassins moved in confusion, scanning the alley with glowing blue eyes. One of them turned to the other, speaking in a voice that sounded like metal grinding against bone. Human, but not ordinary. Hiro struck fast, weaving between them like smoke. His kunai flicked out, slashing cables on their armor. One of them sparked and staggered back. Another spun and unleashed a plasma blast that scorched the wall beside him. Hiro ducked, rolling across the pavement and disappearing into the night once again. The assassins regrouped, whispering in their twisted tongue. One of them produced a small metallic orb, placing it on the ground. It hummed and expanded, spilling a pale blue light that erased the shadows from every corner of the alley. They could see him now. Hiro's heart pounded. His tricks wouldn't save him this time. He bolted for the fire escape. Metal groaned as he climbed, each breath burning in his chest. The assassins leapt after him, scaling the wall like spiders. One grabbed his ankle, metal fingers closing like a vice. Hiro twisted, plunging his kunai deep into the assassin's wrist. Sparks erupted as the fingers loosened. He broke free and vaulted onto the rooftop. The skyline stretched before him, endless towers and neon lights. But the assassins weren't giving up. One of them leapt clean over him, landing with unnatural grace to block his path. Hiro skidded to a stop, eyes flicking to the alley below. No way out. You've had your fun. The tallest one growled in broken Japanese, stepping forward. Now you die. The words hung heavy in the air. Hiro exhaled slowly, feeling the cool steel of his final kunai hidden in his sleeve. He met the assassin's gaze and smiled. "Yeah," Hiro muttered. "I wouldn't bet on that." In one swift motion, he snatched a smoke bomb from his belt and smashed it to the ground. Darkness swallowed the rooftop, but Hiro knew exactly where he needed to go. He danced through the blackness, his blade flashing. Metal scraped, sparks sprayed. One assassin fell, circuits fried. Another lashed out wildly, missing by inches. When the smoke cleared, Hiro stood alone. The assassins were gone, one dead, two missing. Hiro wiped blood from his lip and stumbled toward the rooftop's edge. His chest heaved, sweat pouring down his face. This wasn't just another gang or mercenary group. These were assassins, alien, lethal, and relentless. As he stared out over the city, something glinted in the distance, a single blue light hovering in the sky. It flickered once, then vanished. They weren't finished. Hiro clenched his fists. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But they didn't know what they were dealing with. The Shadow wasn't just a legend, he was the last mistake they'd ever make. The morning after the encounter felt strangely normal, but Hiro knew better than to trust it. The streets bustled with their usual noise, businessmen hurried past, teenagers stared into their phones, and elderly couples strolled without a care in the world. Yet beneath that everyday hum, Hiro sensed an undercurrent of tension. The city itself felt watched. Back at his ramen shop, Hiro worked in silence. He stirred broth, sliced pork, and handed orders to customers as if nothing had happened. But his mind remained elsewhere. The assassins weren't just hired killers, they were something far worse. The way they moved, their unnatural speed, the metallic scent they carried, they weren't human. Hiro knew Tokyo's underbelly better than anyone. Gangs, crime syndicates, corrupt politicians, he could handle those threats. But this was different. This was something from beyond his understanding. His thoughts were interrupted by the chime of the bell above his door. An elderly man shuffled in, Master Koga. Hiro's mentor, clad in a tattered gray kimono, moved like a breeze despite his age. His sharp eyes scanned the room before settling on Hiro. Without a word, he took a seat at the counter. "You felt it too," Master Koga said quietly as Hiro placed a bowl of ramen before him. Hiro nodded. "They're not from here," he muttered. "I don't know what they are, but they're hunting me." Master Koga slurped his ramen thoughtfully, then wiped his mouth with his sleeve. "If they're after you, they won't stop. Not until they've buried you or worse." His gaze hardened. "You need to prepare." Hiro sighed, glancing at the customers. "I can't just disappear. They'll come after the shop, after my friends. They won't come during the day," Master Koga said. "But when the sun goes down, they'll strike. Hard." That evening, Hiro walked home with his senses sharpened. Each flicker of a shadow felt like a threat. Every whisper seemed aimed at him. The streets felt colder than usual, even for Tokyo's winter chill. He kept his hand near his kunai, fingers itching to strike. He was halfway home when he noticed something odd, a cat. It moved with unnatural precision, slinking along the rooftops with purpose. Hiro's eyes narrowed. No normal animal tracked someone like that. He darted into an alley and waited. Moments later, the cat stopped at the alley's entrance. Then it flickered, like a glitch in a video game, and shifted into something else entirely. A spherical drone unfolded from the creature's body, glowing blue eyes scanning the alley. Hiro sprang into action. He lunged, slashing the drone with his kunai. Sparks erupted as the machine twisted away, firing a thin beam of energy that scorched the wall behind him. The drone zipped into the air, circling Hiro like a predator. He snatched a smoke bomb from his belt and hurled it down. Darkness exploded around him, and Hiro sprinted through the alley, twisting through the maze of back streets. The drone pursued him relentlessly, humming like a hornet. Hiro vaulted a fence, kicked off a wall, and launched himself into a narrow gap between two buildings. The drone squeezed in after him, whirring closer. With no room to maneuver, Hiro ripped a metal trash can lid from the ground and flung it at the machine. It struck the drone dead center, sending it spinning into a brick wall. Sparks danced as it sputtered and died. Hiro leaned against the wall, breathing hard. If they had tech like that, this was more than just a hired hit. These things were organized, methodical, and they weren't backing down. The following night, Hiro fortified his ramen shop. He booby-trapped the back door with tripwire linked to smoke bombs, turned cooking utensils into weapons, and positioned mirrors to give him sight lines to the entire room. Every movement felt calculated, every detail accounted for. Still, there was no comfort. The assassin struck just after midnight. The front door exploded inward, sending shards of glass raining across the floor. Hiro sprang from the shadows, kunai spinning in his fingers. Gran, the brute, charged first, a mountain of muscle encased in metallic armor. Hiro ducked low, sweeping Gran's legs. The alien staggered, knocking over a table. Zorvak followed, firing pulses of crackling blue energy from his gauntlet. Hiro flipped behind the counter, narrowly avoiding a blast that vaporized half the condiment shelf. Bottles shattered, soy sauce splattered across the floor. The shop reeked of smoke and scorched miso broth. Hiro grabbed a handful of scalding ramen broth and flung it at Gran's face. The hulking alien howled, clutching his eyes as steam rose from his blistered skin. Before Gran could recover, Hiro slammed a wooden stool into the alien's side, sending him crashing through the counter. Zelare, the telepath, moved last. She raised a hand, and Hiro's body locked in place. His limbs refused to obey him, his mind drowning in static. His fingers twitched as he strained to resist. Not bad, Zelare murmured, her voice slithering through his head. But not enough. The air around Hiro grew heavy. His vision darkened, and memories flickered. His brother's face, their childhood home, the night his brother was murdered. Pain surged through Hiro's skull. He gritted his teeth, fighting the mental grip. Then he remembered the mirrors. Forcing his gaze toward the nearest one, Hiro spotted Zelare's reflection. He drew a shuriken from his belt and flung it without thinking. The blade struck her shoulder, not deep, but enough. Her concentration broke, and Hiro dropped to his knees. Game over, Hiro muttered, seizing a bottle of oil from the shelf. He flung it across the floor, coating the room in a slick sheen. The assassins struggled to stand as their boots slid helplessly beneath them. Hiro grabbed a lit match, flicked it to the floor, and vanished through the smoke-filled back door as flames erupted behind him. The fire didn't destroy the assassins. Hiro knew better than to believe that. But it bought him time. As he climbed the fire escape outside, he looked back to see Gran staggering from the flames, snarling with rage. The assassins weren't finished yet. Hiro knew this wasn't over. If they were desperate enough to attack him in public, they wouldn't stop. Not until they'd burned his life to the ground. As he reached the rooftop, Hiro clenched his fists. They thought they could track him, outmaneuver him. But they didn't know the truth. The shadow didn't hide because he was weak. He hid because that's where he was strongest. And if they wanted to find him in the dark, they wouldn't survive the night. The night air was colder than usual, biting into Hiro's skin as he perched on the edge of a rooftop overlooking the city. His muscles ached, his ribs throbbed from the last encounter, and his mind raced. He knew they weren't finished. The assassins had underestimated him once, but they wouldn't make the same mistake again. They would come stronger, more prepared, and more ruthless. He needed to act first. Hiro visited Master Koga's dojo before dawn. The old man was already waiting, seated cross-legged on a worn tatami mat. His eyes opened as Hiro entered, as though he had been expecting him. Hiro sat silently before his mentor, unwrapping a bandage that revealed the gash across his arm. Master Koga examined the wound without a word, his fingers pressing the edges of the cut. He cleaned it, stitched it with quick precision, and finally spoke. "They will not stop," Master Koga said. "And they know more about you than you realize." Hiro looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Master Koga's expression darkened. "I heard whispers from my contacts in the underground. Those assassins, they were never meant to kill you. They were meant to break you, weaken you before something worse arrived. A chill ran down Hiro's spine. What could be worse than them? Master Koga shook his head. Something old. Something far worse than mindless assassins. Before Hiro could ask more, the sound of shattering glass erupted from the front of the dojo. Both men turned just in time to see 3 shadowy figures slip inside. Hiro grabbed his kunai, Master Koga reached for his staff, but before they could react, a metallic blur shot toward them. The impact knocked Hiro off his feet, sending him crashing into a rack of wooden swords. Splinters flew as he scrambled back to his feet. The assassins were faster this time, moving like lightning. Gran charged first, snarling like an animal. Hiro sidestepped him, slashing his kunai across the brute's side. Sparks erupted from the armor, but Gran barely flinched. Zorvak followed close behind, firing blue pulses of energy that scorched the walls. Hiro ducked low, weaving through the beams as Master Koga struck Gran's knee with his staff, staggering the brute. Zelare appeared last, her glowing eyes locking onto Hiro. This time, her mind attack hit faster, sharper, a mental spear stabbing directly into his consciousness. His vision blurred, his muscles stiffened, and memories flooded back. His brother's dying face, the blood on his hands, the guilt that had driven him into the shadows. He fell to one knee, fighting the crushing weight in his skull. Through the haze, he heard Master Koga cry out. Hiro forced himself to look up and saw Gran's iron grip closing around Koga's throat. The old man struggled, his face turning red as he gasped for breath. Hiro's pulse surged with fury. He forced himself to his feet, biting down on the pain. His hand found a hidden pouch at his belt, metal caltrops designed to pierce armor. With a desperate flick, he scattered them across the floor. Gran stepped back, howling as the spikes punctured his boots. Hiro lunged forward, plunging his kunai deep into Gran's side. The assassin bellowed and fell, giving Hiro just enough time to grab Master Koga and drag him toward the exit. But before they could reach the door, Zelare's cold voice echoed in Hiro's mind. "You will watch him die," she whispered. Hiro felt his limbs freeze again, his body locked in place. Master Koga choked out Hiro's name before Zelare lifted him into the air with an unseen force. Koga's body twisted painfully, joints creaking under the pressure. "No!" Hiro roared, fighting her control. He strained every muscle in his body, forcing his fingers to close around a throwing knife. His vision blurred, his head pounded, but he pushed through the agony and flicked the blade toward her. It struck her wrist, barely a scratch, but it was enough. Her focus faltered, and Koga dropped to the floor, gasping for air. Hiro grabbed his mentor's arm and pulled him outside, barely managing to stumble away from the dojo before the wall behind them exploded in a shower of debris. They didn't stop running until they reached an abandoned steel factory several blocks away. Master Koga's breathing was labored, but he forced himself to sit upright. "They won't stop," he rasped. "They'll come again, stronger." Hiro nodded grimly. "Then I'll finish this before they get the chance." That night, Hiro prepared for the final showdown. The steel factory's towering beams cast long shadows, perfect for his tactics. He scattered mirrors to reflect the dim security lights, creating illusions of movement throughout the building. Smoke bombs were hidden in ventilation grates. Wires dangled across doorways, linked to fire extinguishers and oil traps. The entire factory became his battlefield. The assassins arrived just before midnight. Their glowing eyes cut through the darkness like blades. Gran entered first, his armor scorched but still intact. Zorvak followed, eyes scanning the room. Zelare moved last, her gaze cold and calculating. Hiro struck the moment they stepped inside. A smoke bomb erupted from the ceiling, shrouding the room in a thick gray mist. Gran roared, charging blindly into one of the steel beams. Sparks flew as he stumbled, crashing into a trapped wire that ignited a line of oil. The flames burst upward, forcing the assassins to retreat into the smoke. Hiro weaved through the shadows, striking from the dark. His blade flickered like a viper's fang, slashing Zorvak's arm, cutting Gran's side. Every move calculated. every strike precise. But Zelare was waiting. The instant Hero appeared, her voice invaded his mind again. The memories surged back, his brother's face, the blood, the grief. His body locked up, his mind drowning in a whirlpool of guilt. Zelare's shadow appeared in the mist, her cold smile widening. "I told you," she whispered. "You'll watch him die." But this time, Hero wasn't alone. Master Koga's voice cut through the haze, calm, steady, anchoring Hero back to reality. With a furious roar, Hero ripped a nearby chain from the wall and swung it toward Zelare. The heavy metal links coiled around her arm, yanking her off balance. Hero spun the chain again, dragging her into one of the flames. Zelare screamed as her cloak ignited, her psychic grip vanishing instantly. The battle ended moments later. Zorvak lay motionless, circuits sparking from his damaged armor. Grom limped away into the shadows, vanishing into the night. Zelare's twisted form smoldered on the factory floor. Hero knelt beside Master Koga, exhausted but victorious. "You did well," Master Koga murmured, his hand gripping Hero's shoulder. "But this isn't over." Hero's gaze shifted to the far end of the factory, where something small glowed faintly in the dark, a metallic insignia left behind by the assassins. A symbol he didn't recognize. "What is it?" Hero asked. Master Koga's face turned grim. "It's a warning," he said. "The real hunters are coming." The morning after the battle at the steel factory was bleak. Hero sat in his darkened apartment, feeling the ache in his muscles and the weight in his chest. The assassins were gone, but their presence lingered in his mind. The metallic insignia sat on his table, its strange symbol faintly glowing under the light. Something about it felt wrong, as if it carried more than just a warning. It felt like a promise. Master Koga sat nearby, his wounds freshly bandaged. His face was grim, and the rare lines of worry that creased his brow told Hero everything he needed to know. Whatever was coming next was worse, far worse, than what they had just faced. "I've seen that symbol before," Master Koga said finally, breaking the silence. "It belongs to something older than those assassins. They weren't the real threat, Hero. They were just scouts, distractions. The ones who sent them are something else." Hero leaned forward, staring at the insignia. "Who are they?" "They're called the harbingers," Master Koga said. "Interstellar hunters. They don't just kill, they dismantle entire civilizations. When they target a world, they don't stop until that world's strongest protector is dead or broken." Hero felt the weight of those words settle over him. He knew what that meant. The assassins weren't just after him because he was some local vigilante. They believed he was Earth's greatest warrior. He wasn't sure if he should feel proud or terrified. "I'm not enough," Hero muttered. "I barely survived those 3. If the real threat is still coming—" "You're more than enough," Master Koga interrupted firmly. "But you need to be ready." That night, Hero prepared for the inevitable. He fortified his ramen shop, secured weapons in hidden compartments, and rewired every entry point with traps designed to confuse, delay, or injure. Every corner of his home became a battlefield in waiting. But deep down, he knew all of it might not be enough. Hours later, Hero sat on his rooftop, staring out over the city. Tokyo's endless lights flickered below him, a sprawling web of life and movement. People laughed, shouted, and went about their lives without any idea of what was lurking in the shadows. Hero envied them. He wanted to believe the fight was over, that the assassins had been the worst of it. But a low hum in the distance told him otherwise. The night sky rippled, the clouds shifting unnaturally as something vast appeared overhead. The ship was unlike anything Hero had seen before, sleek, black, and massive, a jagged monolith cutting across the sky. It barely made a sound as it hovered above the city, but Hero could feel the pressure of it in his chest. The air felt heavy, as though the oxygen itself had turned to lead. Then the figures appeared, 5 of them, cloaked in metallic armor that shimmered like liquid mercury. They moved with precision, spreading out like wolves circling their prey. Each one carried a weapon, blades that rippled with purple energy, rifles that hissed with charged plasma, and cruel metal claws that gleamed in the moonlight. Hiro didn't wait. He vanished into the shadows, weaving between rooftops as the harbingers moved below. They didn't bother with stealth, they knew exactly where he was. One of them fired a burst of plasma that seared the air just inches behind Hiro. He rolled forward, slipping down a fire escape and darting into an alley. One of the harbingers was waiting. Hiro barely dodged a blade that sliced deep into the brick wall beside him. He countered with a swift strike, driving his kunai into the creature's side. The blade barely pierced its armor, and the harbinger spun, striking Hiro across the chest and sending him sprawling. Before Hiro could recover, two more figures emerged from the shadows. One lifted a long spear, glowing with crackling energy, and drove it toward him. Hiro twisted just in time to avoid the strike, but the weapon's energy scorched his side. Pain erupted through his ribs. Hiro scrambled backward, but the harbingers were closing in. Their leader, a towering figure with glowing red eyes, stepped forward. In his hand he carried a curved blade, its edge flickering with violet flames. "You are the shadow," the leader said in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "We will end you." Hiro gritted his teeth. "You'll have to catch me first." He bolted into the dark, winding through alleys and narrow streets. The harbingers followed without hesitation. They didn't just track him, they seemed to predict his every move, cutting him off at every corner. Hiro darted toward an abandoned building, weaving through debris and broken walls, knowing this was his best shot. The harbingers entered moments later, their glowing weapons cutting through the dim light. Hiro moved silently through the shadows, his fingers wrapping around a length of chain he had positioned earlier. With one swift motion, he yanked the chain, sending a steel beam crashing down. It struck one harbinger in the chest, crushing it beneath twisted metal. The leader growled and raised his hand. A pulse of violet light erupted from his palm, blasting the debris aside as if it weighed nothing. Hiro staggered back, realizing these weren't ordinary killers, they were something far worse. One of the harbingers lunged at him. Hiro twisted, driving his kunai directly into the creature's neck joint, a weak spot in the armor. The assassin choked and collapsed. But the leader was still standing, his glowing blade arcing toward Hiro in a flash of purple flame. Hiro ducked, barely avoiding the strike, and struck back with a smoke bomb. The room filled with choking gray mist, buying Hiro just enough time to slip behind the nearest pillar. "You can't hide," the leader's voice rumbled through the smoke. "We see through the dark." "I know," Hiro whispered. The smoke thinned, revealing Hiro's trap. Dozens of mirrors positioned to scatter the reflections of the flickering security lights. Shadows twisted and danced across the walls. The harbingers hesitated, their glowing eyes scanning the maze of false images. Hiro struck from the dark, moving fast. His blades found weak points in their armor, joints, neck plates, gaps behind the knees. The harbingers fell one by one until only the leader remained. "You've lost," Hiro said, his voice cold and steady. The leader smiled, a grim, metallic grin. "You think this ends with me?" he growled. "We are only the beginning. Others will come. They will burn this world. I'll be waiting," Hiro said. With one swift strike, his blade drove into the leader's chest. The harbinger staggered, sparks flaring from his armor, before collapsing to the floor. Hiro stood over the body, breathing heavily. The city was silent once more, but Hiro knew peace wouldn't last. Whatever the harbingers had been sent to stop, or start, was still out there. The war wasn't over. Back at his ramen shop the next morning, Hiro quietly returned to work, ladling broth into steaming bowls and greeting customers with a tired smile. He felt the eyes of strangers watching him more closely now, some curious, some fearful. He knew his name had spread, whispered in the streets. The shadow was no longer a legend. He was a threat, not just to criminals, but to something far greater. And somewhere in the distance, Hiro knew something was already watching him from the dark. The days following the battle with the harbingers felt strange. The air in Tokyo seemed quieter, the usual rhythm of life oddly muted. Hiro knew better than to mistake that silence for safety. He had seen what lay beyond the shadows, forces that didn't just want to kill him but wanted to break him, unravel him piece by piece until there was nothing left. His body still ached from the last fight, his ribs tender and bruised, yet it was his mind that felt most battered. The memory of the Harbinger leader's final words lingered like smoke. Others will come. They will burn this world. Hiro spent most of his time repairing his ramen shop. The broken door had been replaced, the scorched walls repainted, and every shattered shelf was rebuilt. Customers returned slowly, some murmuring questions about what had happened. Hiro gave them nothing but tired smiles. He couldn't explain what they wouldn't understand, that an alien war had nearly ignited in the heart of Tokyo, and that he was the only thing standing in the way of something far worse. One evening, just as the sky turned amber with the setting sun, Hiro closed his shop early. He needed time to think, to prepare. He returned to his apartment and laid out his weapons, kunai, shuriken, smoke bombs, caltrops, and a series of new tools he'd created to counter whatever came next. As he organized his arsenal, a knock sounded at his door. Hiro moved silently to the entrance, gripping a blade in his hand. He eased the door open an inch. Master Koga stood on the other side, his face hard as stone. Hiro stepped back to let him in. "They're coming sooner than I thought," Master Koga said without preamble. Hiro set his blade down and turned to face his mentor. "Who?" "Not the Harbingers," Master Koga said grimly. "Worse. Something called the Obsidian Order." Hiro had never heard that name before, but the tension in Master Koga's voice made his stomach tighten. The old man sat down at the table, unrolling a parchment that depicted a series of symbols, jagged spirals and strange runes drawn in ink that seemed to shimmer unnaturally in the light. "The Obsidian Order doesn't fight like those assassins," Master Koga continued. "They control minds, corrupt bodies, and twist entire cities into their puppets. When they take a world, they don't just kill, they infest." Hiro felt a cold chill creep up his spine. "How do you fight something like that?" "You don't," Master Koga said. "You end it before it begins." The rest of the night was spent preparing. Hiro fortified his shop yet again, placing smoke bombs in the vents and tripwires in the alley. But this time, traps weren't enough. The Obsidian Order would be unlike anything he had faced. He knew this fight wasn't about outsmarting his enemies. It was about surviving long enough to stop whatever they were planning. Just before dawn, Hiro received his first sign that they had arrived. He spotted the man across the street, or at least what looked like a man. He stood too still, his head tilted slightly downward as though he were listening to something distant. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes glowed faintly violet. When Hiro blinked, the figure was gone. That night, the Obsidian Order revealed themselves. Hiro awoke to the sound of whispers, faint and cold, as if distant voices were speaking inside his head. He rose silently, gripping his blade. The whispers grew louder, twisting in a language he couldn't understand. When he glanced at the window, shadows writhed and moved on their own, figures pacing just beyond the glass. They weren't solid, more like distorted reflections that flickered in and out of focus. Hiro knew they were testing him, waiting for him to slip. He moved quickly, exiting through the back alley. The street was dark, quieter than usual. The air seemed heavier, the distant glow of Tokyo's skyline barely visible through the unnatural haze that had crept over the city. Hiro moved silently, his senses sharpened. He felt the pressure before he saw the figure. A man, or what was left of one, emerged from the alley ahead. His face was twisted, the skin stretched thin over bone, and his arms hung limply at his sides. Glowing violet veins pulsed beneath his flesh. The man's head jerked sharply toward Hiro, his mouth curling into a grotesque grin. "You can't stop it," the thing whispered, but the voice didn't come from his mouth, it came from inside Hiro's head. The man lunged, far faster than his twisted body should have allowed. Hiro dodged, slicing his kunai across the creature's side. Instead of blood, a thick black substance oozed from the wound. The creature staggered, then turned and grinned wider as the black ichor sealed the wound shut. Hiro's pulse raced. This was no ordinary enemy. More figures appeared from the shadows, 5, then 10, each twisted in some unnatural way. Their faces flickered like broken reflections in glass. Hiro knew this wasn't a fight he could win head-on. He darted back toward the ramen shop, weaving through narrow streets and back alleys. The infected figures pursued him relentlessly, moving faster than seemed possible. They didn't stumble or hesitate. They hunted like predators. When Hiro reached his shop, he sprinted inside, locking the door behind him. The figures gathered outside, their distorted faces leering through the windows. Their whispers crawled inside Hiro's mind, scratching at his thoughts. He staggered back, pressing his fingers against his temples. The first figure slammed its hand against the glass. The window buckled, black cracks spreading across it. Hiro reached for the hidden switch under his counter and triggered the smoke vents. The room filled with thick, choking fog. The distorted figures hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering in confusion. Hiro moved through the smoke like a ghost, striking with precision. His blades found their marks, cutting through the twisted figures. Each one collapsed into black sludge, writhing before finally going still. When the smoke cleared, Hiro was alone. The whispers had faded, and the air felt lighter. But he knew this was just the beginning. Later that night, Hiro sat in the ruins of his ramen shop. The walls were blackened with soot, his tables overturned and shattered. His body ached, and his mind was clouded with exhaustion. Master Koga found him sitting there, quietly nursing a deep cut on his arm. "They'll come again," Hiro muttered. Master Koga knelt beside him. "Yes," he said softly. "But you stopped this wave." "It's not enough," Hiro said. "They'll just keep coming." Master Koga placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you'll keep fighting." Hiro stared at the blackened insignia on the floor, the twisted spiral that marked the Obsidian Order's presence. He knew there would be no rest, no peace. The assassins had been the beginning. The harbingers had been the warning. And now, the Obsidian Order had marked him as their target. But Hiro wasn't afraid. The shadow didn't exist to survive, he existed to protect. And if the darkness thought it could claim his city, it was wrong. Hiro stood, gathering his weapons once more. The war wasn't over, it had only just begun.